Hello there, friends. It's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and theloopylamb.com, and thanks so much for stopping by the channel. Today we are working on another Advent Calendar crochet along project. We are working on a t-shirt for our doll, and it's one of those basic pieces that everyone has in their wardrobe, so our doll needs to have one too. So to follow along with today's tutorial, you're going to need a tapestry needle, a pair of scissors, a 3.5mm or size E crochet hook, or whatever hook that you've been using for all of your projects for the Amigurumi Advent Calendar crochet along so far. You're going to need a worsted weight yarn in your color of preference. I'm using the color Dove Heather today. You'll see if you're following along with the written pattern as well, you will see that I'm using a different color in the pattern. I've used white for that, but I have to use the gray today because if I use white with my background, you're not going to see it. So we're using the gray, and you're going to also need two 9mm buttons, again, in your color of preference. You can match it, have contrasting buttons, whatever works for you. All right. So if you're ready to get started, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to this channel. And I'm going to clear my workspace and we'll get ready to get started. I've already placed a slip knot onto my crochet hook, and we're going to begin by doing a chain 23. So now that I have my chain 23, I am going to start with row 1 of our t-shirt. And we are going to skip the first 6 chains from the hook. So we're counting over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to single crochet into that 7th chain from the hook. And now those skipped 6 chains here will count as our first buttonhole for the back of our shirt. And now we're just simply going to single crochet into each chain across. All right, so I've done my last stitch here of row 1. I should have 17 stitches in that chain 6 space at the end. Then I'm going to chain up 1 and turn my work. I'm going to start with row 2 by placing 1 single crochet into each of the first and second stitches. And I will single crochet increase in the next stitch, which is 2 single crochets in the same stitch. Now we will single crochet once in each of the next 2 stitches. And single crochet increase into the next. Now we will do 1 single crochet in the next stitch, followed by an increase stitch in the next. And all of these stitches are single crochet, so if you hear me just say increase, it means that we're just doing 2 single crochets in the same stitch. We're going to do 1 single crochet in the next stitch and increase into the next. One single crochet into the next stitch, increase into the next. Now we will place 1 single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. We will increase into the next stitch. And now we will place 1 single crochet into each of the last 2 stitches. We're not going to work into this chain space because, once again, that is going to be our buttonhole. So we're going to chain up 1 and turn our work. The end of row 2, you should have 23 stitches. Now to start with row 3, we are going to place 1 single crochet in each of the first 3 stitches. And we will increase into the next stitch. Place 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. Followed by an increase into the next. Now we will place 1 single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. And we will increase into the next stitch. We will place one single crochet in the next stitch and increase into the next stitch. We will single crochet in the next 2 stitches and increase into the next stitch. We will place one single crochet in the next 3 stitches increase into the next stitch, single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches, and increase in the last stitch. At the end of row 3, you should have 30 stitches. We're going to chain up 1 now and turn our work, and we are ready to start with row 4. And we're going to start that row by placing one single crochet in each of the first 3 stitches. And now we are going to chain 7. We will then skip the next 8 stitches, so count over 8 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we are going to single crochet in that next stitch. Now this chain 7 space will create our armhole for our t-shirt. So we're going to have to do that again in just a few minutes. So now that we've got our single crochet, we're going to single crochet again in the next 7 stitches. All right, so I should have a total of 8 single crochets since I've done my chain, and now I'm ready to create my next armhole. And so that means I'm doing another chain 7. Now I will skip the next 8 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, single crochet into that next stitch. And the last 2 stitches as well. At the end of this row, you should have 14 stitches and 2 chain 7 spaces. We're going to chain up 1 and turn our work. For row 5, we're going to simply place one single crochet into each stitch and chain across. At the end of this row, I would advise that you take the time to count your stitches, because it is not uncommon for people to add extra stitches along this chain space here. And we want to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of stitches at the end. So at the end of row 5, you should have 28 stitches. And just as a tip to work your chains, if you're struggling to work into your chains for your chain space, you can work around them. Just make sure that you're only adding 7 stitches into the chain space. Okay, so if you'd like to pause your video and come back to me when you are ready for row 6, I will meet you back here. I just finished my row 5 and I'm ready to start with row 6. I'm going to chain up 1 and turn my work. Now for rows 6 and 7, we are simply going to single crochet into each stitch across. There should be no change in your stitch count for these 2 rows. You should have 28 stitches at the end of each row. So again, if you want to pause your video and do those 2 rows of single crochet, and meet me back here when you're ready to do row 8. Okay, so we have finished with rows 6 and 7, and we're ready to start with row 8. And just like every other row, I'm going to chain up that 1 and turn my work. And we're going to start row 8 by placing one single crochet into the first 3 stitches. And then we will do a single crochet increase in the next stitch. And we're going to repeat this pattern across our round. Our row here, we're going to do 3 single crochets, followed by an increase stitch. Again, we're going to do 3 single crochets, followed by an increase stitch. I'm going to repeat that all the way across, and at the end of this row you should have 35 stitches. So I just finished with row 8. I'm ready to start with row 9, and I'm going to chain 6. I, out of habit, had started a chain 1 there, but I'm going to do a chain 6 and turn this time. Now that I have my chain 6, I'm going to skip those 6 chains, and I'm going to start working back into the first stitch in the body of my t-shirt here, and I'm going to single crochet in the first 17 stitches. Now that I've done my 17 single crochets, I'm going to place an increase into the next stitch. And then I will finish this row off by placing 1 single crochet in the remaining 17 stitches. At the end of this row you should have 36 stitches. Now that I have finished with row 9, I'm going to chain up 1 and turn my work. And for row 10, we are going to do 1 single crochet in the first 5 stitches. And we will increase into the next stitch. And we're going to follow this repeat across our entire row. We are going to do 5 single crochets, followed by an increase. And so if you'd like to finish your row 10 by doing 5 single crochets followed by an increase all the way across your row, at the end you should have 42 stitches. So I just finished my last stitch of row 10, and I'm going to chain up 1 and turn my work. Now for rows 11 through 21, we're just going to place 1 single crochet and each stitch across, and then we'll chain up 1 and turn our work at the end of every row to start the subsequent row. So if you'd like to pause your video and do rows 11 through 21 in single crochet and meet me back here when you're done, we will finish up our doll's t-shirt. So after you do row 10, we are going to do the next several rows from rows 11 to 17 in just single crochet. And I've gone ahead and done this here, and you can see this is how our top will look. So if you want to pause your video and do rows 11 through 17 with just that single crochet stitch, 1 in each stitch across, chain 1 at the end of each row and turn your work. You can come back to me when you're ready to do the next step. But I'm going to continue on here and show you what to do for our next step for our shirt. So now that I've finished row 17, I'm going to finish off my top, cut a tail that I can weave in, and then you can weave in your ends later. Now we are ready to start with our sleeves. We're going to make sure that we have the right side facing us. So I have the right side of my top facing me. I'm going to grab my yarn, and we are going to start working on the sleeves by attaching our yarn to the center point of under our sleeves, right? So we know that we have 7 stitches in our sleeve here. It might be a little tricky to see, but I'll do my best here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the center point for my arm here is right here. Okay, and I'm going to attach my yarn to that stitch with a slip stitch. All right, now we are going to single crochet 18 stitches around the armhole. I like to start in that same stitch that I attached to, and we're just going to place 18 single crochets evenly around the armhole. All right, so I have my 18 single crochets around my armhole. I'm going to join my last stitch to my first stitch with a slip stitch. If you have a stitch marker, as I've said in previous videos, it can be helpful to mark that last stitch, or first stitch technically of that round that we just did, to make sure you're not adding or losing any stitches. You don't have to do that, of course, just something that it can be helpful. So I'm going to chain up 1 and turn my work. And for rows 2 through 3, we're just going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch around, joining our first and last stitches with a slip stitch. We will only do the rounds 2 to 3 for the sleeves. If you want a longer sleeve, you can add more if you'd like. But when you're done rows 2 to 3, you'll finish off, and then you'll repeat these instructions I just gave you for this sleeve on the other side of the top. So if you'd like to pause your video and work on your sleeves, meet me back here and we'll finish up our doll's t-shirt. All right, so I'm finished my little doll t-shirt, and now we just need to put our finishing touches on it. And I'm going to turn mine over. You can see I have not woven my ends in yet, but anyway, so we've got our doll here, our doll t-shirt here, and all we're going to do is we're going to place our, oh, mine is inside out. Sorry about that. With the right side facing you, we're going to take our t-shirt at the back. We want to see where the chain 6 spaces line up on the back, and then we will sew our buttons on across from those chain spaces. You can either use thread and needle, or you can use the yarn and split the plies to use that there. And then just sew those on and your t-shirt is done. I just need to weave in my ends at the end here. So if you have any comments or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to this channel. If you would like to learn more about our Amigurumi Advent Calendar Crochet Along, you can find that information at my blog, theloopylamb.com, as well as other free crochet patterns and tutorials. So thanks so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.